Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us today for our Ashburr May webinar. Today, I'm super excited that we have Attorney Samantha Shepherd with us to present on special needs planning, different trusts that can be used in special needs planning, and just she's a wealth of knowledge in the elder law and special needs arena. I've known Samantha now for several years and used to see her at conferences all the time before I started having babies, but I'm super excited about Samantha joining us. We do have a copy of Samantha's slides in the handouts portion of the GoToWebinar dashboard. And if anybody has questions during the presentation, feel free to type those into the questions bar of the GoToWebinar dashboard as well. Samantha is an elder law attorney in both Missouri and Kansas, and now I will turn everything over to Samantha. Thank you, Samantha.
You're very welcome. Thank you, everybody, for giving me a bit of your life. I will say that I think if I need to turn my head to the right to look at your questions, I might miss them. So I will ask that Amber interrupt me anytime if there's a question as we go along. So as Amber said, I'm Samantha Shepherd, and I actually know when I met her. And if I date us both by telling you, you'll owe me one, right, guys? It was perhaps 2006, I think, maybe 7, but it's been a long time. So what we're going to cover today is everything that you might want to know about disability planning and special needs trust administration, but only in 45 minutes, leaving about 10 minutes for you. Let's dispense with your first question, which is, why do I talk with this strange accent? I'm sorry, I can't get rid of it. I have actually tried, but when I try to get rid of it, I lean more towards a southern drawl, so that's not real helpful. I was born in England, stuck with the accent. A definitely modified version, though. So here's where we're headed. What we'd like to go over with you today is disability, some numbers, why special needs trusts are useful, a little bit of history, the types of special needs trusts, examples, if I get time able to count, and some examples. 45 minutes is not very many minutes, so I'll do my best. Let's go, buckle up. So definition of disability, well, I put this in here because when everyone walks into your office, they don't always present with the obvious physical disability, such as Down syndrome. I'll use that as our stereotypical, visually apparent physical disability. But not everyone that comes our way will look that kind of disabled and tell us right away. So be mindful that there are individuals that you'll see in your practice that might have a disability or a cognitive impairment that limits some of their life, and they may or may not yet have Social Security disability on board. That's kind of important. The ignorance that I encounter on a day-to-day basis, and I mean that in the kindest of ways, is that many families have not encountered Social Security and going through the hurdle of getting a Social Security determination of disability. So ask, and that is these some shocking numbers from my region will give you an idea. I live in Kansas, but I live in Kansas City, so the border of Missouri and Kansas. So this is some numbers from our states. Look at how many individuals here on my slide. There's 1 million or so people in Missouri and about 400,000 in Kansas. And that gives us just an idea, an inkling of an idea of how significant special needs planning is to every estate planner. Some statistics that I've read tell us that it's about 1 in every 3 families that has someone in their group that has a special need. So if your questionnaire does not ask what is the special need of any of your family members, or is there an individual that you think we need to address specifically, I would highly recommend that you modify your questionnaire. So the primary reason that we use special needs trusts, in my opinion, is to protect our loved ones. It's not always public benefits, but that's important, but it's to protect our loved ones and give financial security. It may be that we're protecting our loved ones from themselves. So I just left a conference, which is why I'm a little bit in a rush. It was with a family, mom and dad, and they're 70. I would say 71, maybe 72. He's an engineer, sort of retired. You know how engineers are those clients we upcharge for because they're challenging and they don't really retire very easily. And they have a child who is 40. So he's not a child as we would think if we're parents, but he's a child to them. And he had a brain injury that came from a tumor, that once this tumor was removed, it resulted in some bipolar behaviors and very, very limited physical issues, but mostly cognitive. And those have ended up causing him to various times have erratic behaviors, and he's been hospitalized a number of times. This family had not set up a special needs trust. They have a revocable living trust, and they made it to me because their estate planning attorney said, you know, I think maybe there's a special need issue that you should address, and that just giving an outright distribution on your passing to your son is not the best scenario. And I'm not super comfortable with this, so I'm going to recommend that you speak to Samantha. I have tried and continue to try and believe that since there are so many cases of individuals with special needs, every single estate planner needs to know how to do this kind of trust. And that kind of trust that my clients that literally just left, my interesting engineer personality client, that is called a third party trust. And we'll go into it on a couple more slides, and I'll tell you over and over again, third party trust. But all estate planners should be able to handle that kind of a trust, meaning it's not so challenging that you can't get it done. So you'll make fun of me if you want, but I learned only how to put color in my PowerPoint, but not how to in fact make one of those little things pop up at a time. So maintain public benefits, protect loved ones, financial security pops up 4 times. You'll love me. So I love history. I was a history major at Tulane a million years ago, and I probably had a little bit too much fun in college and didn't know anything about special needs. Didn't know a whole lot about special needs after I got out of Tulane, even though I had special needs individuals in my family. My parents had adopted 2 individual children who had significant special needs. Never had heard of a special needs trust. Guess why? It didn't exist. And this is key to us, because when you're reviewing existing documents, you need to realize that it's not that old. 1993. So I was actually in my 2nd year of law school in 93, and was it my 3rd year of law school? I guess it depends how you see the year, when OBRA came about. So not that long ago in my mind, which means that I think we will all see trusts that predate 1993 and don't have the right language for special needs. Do you know what people used to do? What were the options before 1993? Primarily disinheritance. So if a family found that they had a loved one and they were concerned about their ability to manage money, let's talk about this guy I just had in, right? So he's, they said that when he's experiencing his manic phase, he will go out and buy a new house. And as things have calmed down in life, now they know when he's in a manic phase because the door is flooded with Amazon packages. So what would you do with a child like that? They would have just said, his brother can look after him. Let's just leave him no money, because if you give him money, he's going to blow it. Well, in comes OBRA 93 and says, let's think about this and let's create some options for people with special needs. So I give you the one in green here, the one federal statute that you need to know. It's not hard to find it. You can Google it, but you do need to act like you know what you're talking about with clients when it comes to this one particular 42 USC. So 42 USC 1396P, and then D4A, there's a D4B, and there's a D4C. So 42 USC 1396P. So lots of people, when they talk about trusts and they kind of get snobby, their lawyerly snobbiness, they refer to certain trusts as the D4A or an OBRA trust. This is what they're talking about. There's nothing more to it. A D4A trust is formed by looking at 42 USC 1396P D4A. And once somebody asked me who Mr. D4A was, and I thought, okay, wow, I need to slow down. It's D4A. Okay. I have this next slide, which I don't like, so I'm going to buzz through it, but I want to tell you, I want credit for it being so pretty. It has some creativity in me that I wanted to give you this pretty slide, but it doesn't flow nicely along. It's just telling us why we have these special needs trusts, and I think if you're here today, you at least know that it's important. So we have them because it makes life better for people. It gives peace of mind and financial security, protects benefits. All right, here's your meaty slide. So this 42 USC that I talked about helps us get these 4 different trusts going. There's the first party trust, which is the D4A. There's a third party trust, there's a pooled trust, and there's a testamentary trust. If I could use no other slide and talk to you for my remaining time, which unfortunately I didn't set the clock on, so we're gonna have to wait for Amber to tell me, cut it off, Samantha. We could just stay right here. This is where your meat is. A first party trust, a third party trust, pooled trust, that's where the substance of the chat is. A first party trust, in my mind, is I see a visual image of James, and I see a visual image of kind of a stereotypical aggressive personal injury attorney, because that's where most of them come to me. I'm going to slip, I'll give you this, but I want to give you James. Here we go. James. James is a real dude. He's a fantastic character. If you want to Google him, his name is James McGinnis, and you could put in James McGinnis, brain injury, Kansas, or he was a high school senior playing American football with all the helmet and pads on that goes along with it. And no one quite saw an impact, but he was lying down. He sustained an injury and he ended up nearly dying. Life-altering. I guess some of you have probably heard of Madonna in Nebraska, where many people who have significant head injuries are fortunate enough to have that option to go there. But they really did think he would die. He was in a coma for a long time. And as you would imagine, being a senior in high school, he was about 17 or 18. He didn't find his way to me until he was 26. And the reason it took so long was because nobody had told his family that he could qualify for Medicaid, and that his money that he ended up getting through a small settlement was able to go into a trust and he'd still get benefits. Just nobody told him. They found out at 26 because that's the age when you get kicked off of your parents' health insurance, and so they were pretty desperate to find how could he get any kind of benefits. And his family, they are super duper in love with him. He's a great guy and they would do anything for him. So they're not lacking in compassion. They're just lacking in knowledge. And they came to me and they needed a trust to hold a couple $100,000, let's say. I do have a water, which I'm going to need. And what we did was we put his money in this trust. And again, it was called a D4A, or first party trust. Why is it called a first party trust? Because the money had already hit James's pocket. So he's the first party. It's just a weird thing. I always think of high school English, I, me, and my, and that's a first party word for me. I also think of the number 1. So think of a tree and a straight number 1 up and down. If you're trying to have something in your brain that's going to say, why is this a first party trust? So think of James as this straight up and down dude. He's a human being, like a little soldier. It forms the number 1, so you'll be first party. It's a James kind of trust. And he took the money that he got from a settlement and put it into this first party trust. And immediately that money did not count against him. We were able to get Medicaid. Didn't matter if it had been many millions or if it had been $100 over our limit for Kansas, where he was a resident, which is $2,000, which is interesting because $2,000 is the dollar amount for Social Security. Now our neighboring state is $5,900 for Medicaid. limit of resources, but it's still the 2,000 for Social Security. And James had to go through a process of getting Social Security to identify him as a person with special needs, even though he had what you and I would probably think is an automatic reason to go. His parents hadn't done that. They just didn't know to. So what I want you to think about when you think about James is, if somebody gets money in their own name, in their number one own name, it's going to disqualify them. So we need to think about setting up a first party trust for them. Now, a third party trust. The third party trust is the guys, I've given you an example here, but forget that example, because I use the same name and it's James. Silly me. It's this client that I just met with. The engineer and his wife who have the brain injured child. Their brain injured adult 40-year-old doesn't have any money. But when these clients came to meet with me today, they wanted to figure out if we die or when we die. I think their quote was, "We've come to realize that it's very likely that we will die at some point and likely leave our lovely son, who will not have the ability to manage money." So what they would be setting up is a third party trust. Pivotal differences between a first and third party trust. I know this is a weird thing, but I'm trying to help you remember with weird numbers. Think about, if you can see my fingers, I don't know if you can. 3. So in my third party trust, remember, it's the old bald guy, he's the one of my fingers. It's his sweet wife, and it's their special needs kiddo. So there are 3 party in it. It just helps you remember. It's not actually why it's called that way, or it's called that, but 3. 1, 2, 3. 3 people, third party trust. Maybe it'll help you remember the bald guy and his wife needed to set up a third party trust because it's their money that they want to leave for their kids. So pivotal differences is, whose money is it? Is it James's money because it came to him directly? Then it's first party. Is it the old bald guy's money? And it's a third party trust. Another pivotal difference is a payback. A payback means when everybody's dead, where does this money go? If it's a first party trust, we first have to look to see what James owed the state. Why would James owe the money to the state? Well, because Medicaid is a collaborative state and federal program. And if James took part in any Medicaid benefits, they're going to know. You could call the state of Kansas right now and say, "Hey, can you tell me the dollar amount that James owes? Because how much Medicaid has he used?" They're going to know. So when James passes away, if there's any money left in this trust, it goes first to pay off the state. So there's this payback. Now, in my bald guy trust, I hope to God that man never listens to my presentations, Amber. In my bald guy and his wife setting up a trust, their third party trust, they don't owe the state of Kansas a dime. It's their own money. Now, their kid could be using Medicaid, cha-ching, cha-ching, cha-ching. It doesn't matter. They don't have a debt, so there's no payback in the third party trust. Have I seen that? I unfortunately have seen that not 1 or 2 times, but a few dozen times, when well-intentioned lawyers don't know that mom and dad don't owe the state, so they include a payback. Very often I find that the estate planning attorneys don't know about a pooled trust, or they know a lot of bad information. So let's get to some nitty-gritty stuff about a pooled trust. Here's an example. I've got a gal named Maria. It's a different name this time, guys. She's 45, she has a disability, she gets SSI and Medicaid, and she gets an inheritance. And to her, it's a fortune. Now, why do I say it's a fortune? SSI in 2025 is money from the Social Security system, and it's $967. Now, I don't know about you, but if I stopped working as a lawyer and I got a check for $967, and it was supposed to pay for my rent, it was supposed to pay for my water, power, trash, cable, internet, insurance, clothes, food, I would be in a world of hurt, because rent around here is pretty cheap, as I hear, Midwest, but you cannot find an apartment very easily for under $800. Explain to me how we do this. I don't know. So if you give Maria 50 grand, it's a fortune to her and she's not going to want to blow it on one thing. Maybe because her special need is I want to spend, but let's just say she has full comprehension and her disability is just, she has no legs, we'll say. So her brain is fully intact, but she doesn't have legs. So she has a physical challenge. She doesn't want to blow that 50,000 all at once. She doesn't want to pay a lawyer 5 to 10 grand to set up a trust. She wants to use it a little bit at a time so that she can have internet for the next 20 years. So what is her option? A pooled trust. Pooled trusts haven't been around a long time. I bet you're going to know when. 1993. Wow, because I already told you over 93 came in, and that made a big difference in special needs law. And the particular pooled trust is one of these sections of 42 USC 1396P. It's a D4C trust. So what happens? They're all not-for-profits. Are they all the same? No. I think I had been at this for a decade before I realized that a pooled trust was not just the cheap alternative, and it absolutely is the cheap alternative, meaning you show up at a pooled trust, you give them a call, you don't get your own special needs trust, there is one. You join with a master agreement. Fabulous. It doesn't come at no cost. There's usually a sliding scale of costs, and usually there is some, you get your money by asking for it. So you would say, I need a TV, or like I said, you need internet. So you have to reach out to the pooled trust and say, I would like you to pay for my internet bill, and they will reimburse you for it. And sometimes they can set up auto pays. Most of the time what I see is reimbursements for a television or reimbursements for adaptive equipment. So it's, is it good? Absolutely. Is it great? Nah. You know, because it is a pooled trust, there's some downsides. Your money is in a pool. It's not managed individually. Some people want to have individual investments. I think you and I would say, if we had a choice, would you put your money in a pool with a bunch of other people, or would you have some say in how your money's invested? You would want some say. But life is a series of balances. One of the other pooled trust things that I want people to make sure they know about is ask your different pooled trusts, what happens to remainder money? I'm just going to say they are all different. Some of the pooled trusts allow the beneficiary to direct where some of the money goes at death, and some of the pooled trusts keep all the money in the pool. It's permissible under federal law to keep all the money into the pooled trust because it's a charitable purpose. But I think if most of your beneficiaries knew they had a choice, they'd probably shop around for a pooled trust that would allow some money to stay with their family members. Just something that we don't always know about. And then find out how big the pooled trust is and how many people work for the trust versus how many dollars are managed. What that means is if they have a gazillion trusts and very few workers, you're not going to get a quick turnaround and a good touch with your clients. So not all pooled trusts are equal. Testamentary trust. My bias is against testamentary trusts. Why? Every single testamentary special needs trust requires a will, and it requires probate. And if you already know that your child has a disability, it's not a maybe. So here's my example. When I first had a child, I lived in Maine. I'd just gotten out of BC law school. I didn't have money to have a kid. I don't know what I was thinking. But I needed a will, and of course I knew nothing about how to make my own will, so I hired a lawyer. Crazy. Mind you, here in Missouri, when I took the bar, part of the bar was, how do you set up a will? So anyway, so I didn't have money for a trust. So I set up a will. And like all good people, my will said, if I possibly have a death and I still have a minor kid, I want you then to create a trust for my minor kiddo. That was great because my will had, I had no money, but I did have a life insurance policy, and the life insurance policy would have gone into, the proceeds from the life insurance policy would have gone into a trust for the benefit of my new kiddo, who turns out had special needs, but I didn't know for 11 years. So life deals you interesting cards. So this is a wonderful solution for the will, creating a testamentary special needs trust, is a wonderful solution for someone who doesn't have a lot of money, who does not have a child with a disability, or doesn't have a lot of money, has a child with a disability, and is only funding it later with life insurance, and they just don't have the money to set up a special needs trust now. Okay. Isn't this pretty? I love my little 5 bright, colorful things for you. So what should you do? This I think is obvious, but it's pretty. So consult an expert. You are the expert, okay? You are the expert. It's not a 20 years of law experience that puts you in a position to be able to serve a family with a special needs child. It's a pretty small area of law that you can get very comfortable in fast. You need to assess the needs of the individual, so figure out what this person needs. Not every beneficiary is the same. You need to select a trustee, and I have a huge bias here, as Amber knows. So 5 years ago, I created my own special needs trust company because I found that being a special needs trustee has become less desirable. They're less profitable for corporate trustees because they require more touch. You need to know Medicaid, and you need to know Social Security laws, and you need to be able to touch your beneficiary, sometimes daily, but more often weekly and monthly, to figure out what's good. Then they execute the documents, and funding is my fun time. I will tell you that in my years of practicing, that is the biggest maybe falling down of my own and my clients. I leave them, I shake hands. It's been a pleasure to work with you. I'm really excited that you leave with this complete packet of what you need to do to make your life run, and they do not fund their trust. So I send them a 3-year letter. It's been 3 years since I've seen you. Let's get together. And then I find that the only thing in their trust is the house because I did the deed. So we go through again the process of walking into the bank, of getting the forms for the assets that they have. Maybe their work has a life insurance policy and they didn't get around to reaching out to the employer. Yeah, funding becomes the sticky one. Oh, so you're probably getting this because I'm telling you repetitively, but there are these distinct roles in a special needs trust. There's the beneficiary, there's the trustee, there's the rules of disbursement, and there's a legal framework, and there's an assets coming in. So think about this. One thing I want you to hear me. Do not put a HEM standard. If you have drafted a special needs trust before, you may need to go back and check yourself, because this will give you this, electric shock, stressful feeling of maybe that was me and I did that. A HEM standard, health, education, maintenance, and support. There's discretion in that, right? Sounds great. That's what we do for normal people. We don't want that in a special needs trust. You want to make sure that your special needs trust says that it's to supplement, but not supplant, benefits. Don't be frightened. It's okay. You can do this. Typical things that we have in a special needs trust that sometimes people actually itemize these, and depending on my client, sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. More often I give them a detailed letter that says, if they want to be the trustee themselves, I give them this detailed letter that says, this is what you're allowed to spend money on. A lot of it depends on whether my person actually will get Social Security benefits or Social Security and Medicaid. But I thought it would help you guys to know this is typically what people spend money on coming out of a special needs trust. It could be lawyer services. I love that. I'm often asked, hey, I have an ABLE account. Can I use that to pay for legal fees? Yay, yes. How about car insurance, computers, massages, pet care? Oh my God, there is so many of my special needs people have like 7 cats and 2 dogs, and they need to go to the vet. And yeah, that's their entertainment, that's their love. Use the money in the special needs trust for pet care. There's a thing about travel here. See how it says vacations? You can pay for vacations. Absolutely pay for vacations, and absolutely you can pay for a travel companion. But I want to point out that you cannot pay anymore for just traveling to visit your person with special needs. So let's say that your beneficiary lives in Kansas City and Auntie lives in Florida, and Auntie wants to come and see her nephew, and Auntie doesn't have a lot of money, so she calls up the trustee and says, can we use this trust and pay for the flight? And the answer is no, but. So I'm going to approach this from two ways. One is how you might fix that trust, because there are some really decent trusts out there. They are good, solid special needs trusts that were created in the early 2000s, and then along came Social Security and changed the rules. And Social Security said, you can not travel from Florida to visit your nephew. You can travel from Florida to check out the living arrangement of the nephew. What's the difference there? It cannot say globally, generically in your special needs trust that you can pay for travel to see the special needs person. Oh my goodness, that means a lot of trusts out there are wrong because they say you can travel, and it doesn't give enough specificity. And my Kansas and Missouri Medicaid has come down on that hard. So we've had to go in and modify trusts that said generic stuff about travel, and it can only say that you can travel to evaluate the living conditions or to evaluate the needs of the person with special needs. That's distinct from vacation, but I throw it in here. At the bottom right of my slide, it says effective 9/30/24, Social Security updated a food rule. Okay, wake up. This is a big thing. There are three big categories that used to be out there: food, shelter, clothing. I guess I would say four. That you're supposed to get this $967 a month, and it's supposed to cover everything. It's supposed to pay for your clothing, it's supposed to pay for your food, it's supposed to pay for your shelter. Not anymore. Clothing went away a while back, and we knew that you could get an okay from the trustee of your special needs trust to use the money to pay for clothing without causing a reduction of this 967. Now, 967 is not a lot, so we don't want to reduce it. But now, as of September 30th of 24, the Social Security has updated its rules. Special needs trust can pay for food, and it's not going to reduce this 967. That is a very big deal. Big deal, big deal. And now you know, you're up to date. How about some myths? Let's take a break from all that fun stuff. The first one I put up here is individuals who are receiving benefits and who have a special needs trust, they just can't work. No, they can work. We also have an ABLE account, which I'll tell you about, but special needs individuals can work. It doesn't do us any good as a culture to create a set of rules that require people to sit and do nothing and still get some services. That is definitely a myth. Number two, inheritances are safe if they're kept small. Well, I think it's a little bit true. They are safe if they're kept a little bit small, like $500. So $500 can be received and spent. But if the $500 makes your total dollars go from $2,000 in the account, the savings account or the checking account makes it go from $2,000 to $2,500, even though it was $500, it was too much. So inheritances are not safe. They should go into third-party special needs trusts, and they can be any size. If, remember James, and my straight up and down number one, if the inheritance comes to James directly and the parents didn't set up the right trust, we can still take the money and save the day by putting it into a first-party trust. Time out. Sometimes we can fix the trust. We fix trusts with decanting. Just saying, think about fixing trusts before we say it's an inheritance. We need to jump into a first-party scenario. Myth number three, Medicaid is only for the poor. So I have a trust on my desk, which I am delinquent in reviewing, for one of the most wealthy Kansas City families. They are exceedingly wealthy, and they live in Leawood, which is one of our little areas around here that is high net worth. And they have a delightful child with Down syndrome, as it happens. And they want this child to stay getting the group benefits, the group home benefits, the community supports, where all of his friends are. And guess what happens if they just leave him an outright inheritance? He doesn't have eligibility for these public benefits. So it's not only for the poor, it's for people who know that their individual needs supports. And one of those supports could be Medicaid. It could be that they will never, ever need Medicaid. Now, I'll argue this until I'm blue in the face. If you tell me that you will never need Medicaid, I believe you. I believe you. It may mean that you don't know what Medicaid has to offer in your community, but I'll still believe you. If you tell me that you're going to end up with a couple million in the trust, and you don't need Medicaid, so you don't want it to be a special needs trust, you're going to be wrong, in my opinion. It's because I think that people with special needs need trustees that understand special needs. They need trustees that understand how to be a guide for the life of someone whose needs are unique. It's not about quarterly distributions. It's about guidance, and it might mean tightening up on the purse strings. It might mean locating a house. That's special needs trust, folks, even if you're not getting public assistance. Okay, here's a fun one. Last myth for you. Misbelief about the trustee dominance and your loss of control. Yeah, there's this idea that you take all your money and you hand it over into this cave, and the stone rolls over the cave. It's the opposite of Jesus's rebirth. All the money gets blocked into this cave, and you just have to knock at the door and ask like this, can I have my money out of the trust? Well, I suppose there are entities that are like that, and some due diligence is required to find out who your trustee is and how they approach giving money out. But that's not the idea. They're a fiduciary. There's one beneficiary. That trustee has a duty to know what's going on a day-to-day basis, on a weekly basis, on a big picture basis, and they are supposed to use that money for the benefit of that individual. And the big control is just fire that trustee, right? If that trustee is not doing the right thing, they need to be removed, because they are not the one to dominate, and they are not supposed to remove all control. One of the great tools is a TrueLink card. A TrueLink card puts an actual physical card, if your person can handle money at all, into the hands of the person with special needs. It's not very challenging to register with TrueLink. So T-R-U-E, TrueLink. I'm not sure how they got the deal. They have the deal, though, with Social Security. And that means Social Security said, you have a TrueLink card, you're going to continue on getting your benefits, we don't mind. And then the TrueLink card allows the trustee to have a ton of control. The TrueLink card, the trustee, let's say I'm the trustee, I can log on to TrueLink and specifically preclude one particular gas station where I know my guy keeps going and buying 20 packs of cigarettes so he can sell them for drugs or something. I can say no more for you at that gas station. I can do global things like no booze, or and I can drop money in every 2 days if I want to, if I have someone, and it can be automated. So the TrueLink card is super great, but it allows some control to sit in the hands of a beneficiary. I don't work for them either. Just giving you some pointers. So what would I say? Going back to a boring old little pretty but boring slide for you is think about taxes, think about getting some guidance from other professionals, think about compliance. So I would just say this, if you're entering into the world of special needs law, and you're entering into the world of special needs trusts, you do need to keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in special needs. So that means that there are listservs that you can join. You can become an expert pretty easily, and it's a very sharing community. There's not a competitive streak in it because there's a dearth of practitioners, but you will need to know some of these things. You'll need to come to a few more shows like Amber's putting on, give you some more data. Okay. This is a huge must cover. I know I don't have but 5 minutes, so I'm going to give my 5 minutes here. ABLE accounts. So the ABLE account is so easy to learn about, but you didn't miss it, right? You know, you think, I've been a lawyer for 15 years, or I've been a lawyer for 5 years, however long you've been a lawyer for. The ABLE account's only been around since 2014, and very few people are actually using it in the country yet, really, so far. It's ABLE. When it came out in 14, it was to help individuals with special needs save. So here's my story. I got Johnny. Johnny's just graduating from high school, and he's able to do some stuff. He's a happy-go-lucky guy. He still lives with mom and dad, but he's working at the local pizza shop. And they give him 2-hour shifts, and he manages that giant dishwasher, and he ends up accumulating $600 every month. And we got a $2,000 asset limit. His parents are alive, so they don't want to fund their third-party trust. He doesn't want to go put his money into go to a lawyer and spend 5 to 10 grand setting up a special needs trust. He wants to be able to save because he actually wants to save for something he wants to buy. He's decided he wants to buy one of these new, you know, you put the glasses on and you're playing video games, imaginary video games, and they cost a couple grand to buy the whole system he wants. He wants to save. So we decided in 2014 to set up this law that says people with disabilities, they should be able to save. We've told them they can cap at 2,000. We've taken out any ability for them to save. Let's create this thing. So we created it under the same body of law that a 529 is. When we say 529, we're all thinking about kids in college. If you look at this 529, which is a section of the IRS code, there's another section in it that says ABLE account now. And it's tax advantage. That just means that you throw your money in and it grows tax-free. So there are some parents that have lots and lots of money, and they're all excited to set up an ABLE account for their kid. And I think, you know, pause. Most ABLE accounts still have a payback provision, meaning if it's too big, the kiddo passes, there's money left over, the state will get paid. Kansas doesn't, so not all states are the same. But it's a tool primarily for savings for people who have disabilities and they're working. If we're going to use it for grandparents who want to give money to their kids, we don't say unlimited amount. They can, when I say grandparents to kids, I meant grandkids. Grandparents want to set up 529s for all their grandkids, but Billy has a disability, so they want to give the same amount to all of their grandkids. They can set up an ABLE account. An individual can have one ABLE account. There's the tricky part, one. And the maximum amount that can be contributed is this year 19,000. If you'll see, that's the exact same amount as the federal gift tax exclusion, which just means to you, it will change. And last year it was 18,000. Next year it's going to be 20. That's as far as I recall. It used to be 10,000 when I started in the game. Oh my God, I'm getting old. So the amount that can be contributed is 19,000. There's an exception. It's for income. So if the individual gets 19,000 from grandpa and they are working, they can also add an additional amount themselves, which I don't recall that amount, but we can Google. And I think it was, if I had to guess, it was another 4 grand or so, but I don't know. Okay, so that is me sticking to, I promised Amber that I would yabber for about 45 minutes. I have a lot more that I would like to share, but I can take questions now. If I'm looking over here, is there a question?
Yeah, there is a question. I can read it to you. It's how many clients do you see that want to fund a third-party special needs trust now before their death versus funding occurring at death? And if you want to fund a third-party special needs trust now with real estate, is there any downside to doing so?
Okay, so that's like a whole bunch of questions, right? So how many people do I see that want to fund third-party special needs trusts now? So a good amount, but it's because they're aging and they want to hand over some of that stress. So say this example I gave you of my bald guy and his wife, and they're 70 and they're doing okay, but they started saying that they're forgetting things and they worry that there's dementia in their family. They will still be alive, but they want to say, take a chunk of money, put it in this trust they've created, this third party, and slap the lid on it. I usually keep my third party trusts revocable until funded, or till death of the grantor, so that I have flexibility, because the law changed. Since I've been at the game, Secure Act came along and had all these provisions. Particularly the good one is that we can stretch money that you leave in an IRA. For a normal kid, you got 10 years. For a kiddo with disabilities, you can stretch forever. So I leave my special needs trust, my third parties, open until funding. Do I think it's okay to fund it now? Sure, make it irrevocable and then fund it. And then you can have somebody else serve as the trustee. Maybe you would want my lovely trust company. But we do that. Does it work? Can you put real estate in there? Sure. Would you want to put real estate in a third party trust? Now, if you're wealthy, and wealthy is kind of big right now, meaning 13.99 million per individual. So married couples, add 14 and 14 is 28 million. You put things in IREV trusts to protect and also to get outside of the estate tax. We don't have most people doing that these days. I mean, maybe, I know there are super affluent people that have more than the 40, whatever, million, 13 and 13, 14, 14, 28. That's a lot of millions. And I wasn't great at math, so I'll slow down. 13.9 plus 13.9. So I went 14 plus 14 is 28. So it's only people who have a 28 million or more who would care about an estate tax. And those people tend to want to fund their third party trusts while they were alive so they can get money out of their estate. Other reasons you might do it, as I said, dementia coming in, or maybe you were just frazzled. I have this one client. They are super wealthy. They are sort of irritated with their special needs kiddo because of his demands on them. And so they have decided, we're going to put 500 grand into a third party special needs trust. We're going to hand it over to an independent trustee, and we're going to tell him no. From us, it's no, no, and more of no, because they're not good at that. And they're going to say, go ask the trustee, we don't have any more money for you. That's one reason, because remember, all special needs aren't cute and pretty. Some of them are just plain old mental challenges, like that one. Let's see, was there another question in that question, or did I answer that one enough? I'd love that person to bite back with a follow-up.
Yeah, there's another question here. Can an individual have more than one third-party special needs trust? I have clients who have an established third-party trust for special needs individual. There are other family members who want to contribute money to the special needs individual, but they do not agree with the disposition plan in the third-party special needs trust.
That's exactly right. Perfect scenario would be divorced couples. And so you know that I was going to say something political. If you listen to certain politicians, you'll believe that autism breaks families, and then you have the mother and the father. There are lots of divorced families in special needs, just like the rest of the population, but they don't have the same end goal. They have the same lifetime goal. They both have love for Trevor, their special needs child. And they both say at Trevor's death, we want the money to go in different directions. So absolutely you can have a dozen. I mean, they're really typically, the most I have seen for special needs trusts would be 3 for one individual that I'm administering. One came from mom, one came from grandparents, and one was a first party trust. So in that scenario, I will say we always use the first party money, right? Because first party has a payback to the state. So you want to make sure that if they don't all have the same trustee, you do run into some sticky stuff there, because how do you know which trust to use, right? So I would say, yeah, multiple trusts are great. Makes perfect sense when you've got a blended family or divorced families. But be careful about making sure that you either collaborate on getting a trustee or you will run into spending issues. Any more questions for me? If not, I've got some more babble.
We don't have any more questions right now, but if you can talk a little bit about Assured Trust Company and if you're able to work with attorneys across the country and things of that nature.
Yeah, love to. So I told you I'm a little bit of a wild one. I came from England when I was a teenager and decided never to go back because I loved America so much. I'm just kidding. My parents stayed. They were military, and I thought I was American. Shocking. I was the only American with an English accent. I never thought I would start a trust company. I never had a desire to. I'm just a lawyer. And what happened was these trust companies that are out there kept putting limits. And yes, I can work in all 50 states. Yes, it's very easy. But when I say limits, if you don't have 100,000, it probably isn't economically advantageous to have a special needs trust. Maybe I have a few that we administer assured trusts that are under 100,000, but often we need another alternative. But 100,000 is still, sometimes it's a house and 100,000. No trustee around is going to take that. So I ended up stepping up individually in 2014. I can't believe time went by, and I said, I'll do it. And it was mostly because I was working with seniors, and these seniors were dying, and no one else was there. There was no other child, or the child didn't get along really well with the special needs child. It was just too much of a family burden. I had this one scenario where the mother said, I have 2 great kids, and she named the 2 great kids as her beneficiaries, and the one with typical needs she named as the trustee. And after 10 years, the sister said, I haven't used any money out of the trust. And it hurt my soul, because the remainder beneficiary of the special needs trust was the healthy child. So there's a conflict there. And people have busy lives, and they don't go and visit their siblings in group homes for various reasons. It's hard emotionally or physically or financially. And so they're not aware of what the day-to-day needs are. The first thing you can do with that special needs money is hire an advocate to do what mom or dad would have done, which is call periodically, show up unannounced periodically, make sure there's a mattress that's appropriate, make sure that she gets a weekly allowance to go out bowling with the rest of the people. I would say Assured Trust was chartered in Kansas because there was a low barrier to entry. And what I mean by that was you had to live in Kansas. So if you don't live in Kansas, you can't come and start a trust company here. They don't have the many, many millions that are required to set up a trust company. So we're allowed to be small, but we're regulated. So there are individuals who serve as trustees, as professional trustees, but they don't have a succession plan beyond their life, and they're not regulated. I have the state showing up every year, randomly pulling out files and saying, where's the receipt for this check that you wrote to pay for this massage? And that gives peace of mind. Can Assured Trust serve? Absolutely. Our idea, our model's different. We have social workers who are in the role of administering the trust. We have one guy who's a pastor. Just a great heart. I'm looking for people when I add to the team that are interested in serving others, and that are interested in using Assured as their vehicle to give back in the world. We do have some super affluent people that have come our way that help because our fees aren't very high. And when I say they help, it just means it needs to be, it's not a not-for-profit in theory, and it will benefit from being, it's a boutique. So we give a lot of hands-on service, and we're independent. Independent's one word that I didn't know what that meant. It means 2 things. 1, we're not a bank. And 2, we allow any financial advisor to work with us, any financial advisor. So that makes us a unicorn. We are in charge of making sure that this financial advisor is doing the right thing and they're not Madoff, but we don't care if it's an Ed Jones company or a little guy on the corner. And if they don't have an advisor, then I have vetted advisors. So that's part of the umbrella of services. We can manage money, but we don't unless there isn't one. Feels kind of funny to sit and talk at a screen and tell you why Assured Trust Company is great. But the other thing we built in was a care team. So if you come in, there's an evaluation that is intensive. That's what are you currently getting for public benefits? Are you getting Medicaid in your state? What are your personal care needs? What are your personal care abilities? And that's conducted as part of any onboarding, and it's a pretty detailed process. Then if they need supports, we make sure that we use an employer that is not the trust. We don't want to jeopardize that trust. And if somebody goes into the house and falls down the stairs and tries to sue the trust, not the trust company, but the trust, we want to protect that trust. So we use a real employer, an outside employment entity. And we have clients now in Georgia, a couple in California, We have Nebraska. The obvious ones for me are the ones that we can touch on the four corners. We have Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri. Of course, my home base of Kansas, but I would say a few in Texas. They're kind of, oh, there's some Illinois. We actually have a physical office in Chicago because somebody said to me that would be hard to do, and that came out as a challenge. But always looking for new staff people and people who want to work with Assured, and would love to talk to anyone who's interested in learning more about our services. Happy to help. Thank you so much, Amber, for thinking of me. And I'm honored to teach and educate anyone about how to be a better trustee. Family members can be trustees. I'm more than happy to share drafting tips. If people email me and they want to say, I've got this provision in my trust, you think it's good or bad, I'm super opinionated. I'll say, oh, that's horrible, try again. Or, yeah, I agree, that's what I put in mine. So I really do value being an approachable resource for people. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you, Samantha. That was great. And if anybody does have any questions for Samantha, her email address is on the screen. Do you want to just talk a little bit about you hosted your first conference this past year?
I would so love it if they would go. Yeah, so as a special part of me as a human, being slightly wild and crazy, I decided that we didn't have enough training like this. And my training was, it won't be as cheap. I can't do it as cheap. It was $125 for an all-day conference, and it was called the Kansas City Special Needs Conference. And I would absolutely love to have each and every one of you show up for it. So it was May 1st, and we had 160 people sign up, and that we only had room for 14 vendors, and they were all there. And any profits, which there was a tiny profit, went to a local special needs charity called Heartland Special Needs Foundation. So what it was these people, I had friends that came in who were experts in the field, and they were nice to me. They didn't charge any honorarium, but I had somebody come in and talk about tax specifically, someone come in to talk about some of the distributions that are good and bad about cars and houses. It was a lot about actually how you work with trust once they're set up. There was one person who gave the history from the beginning when you would set up a trust, a lot of Oprah stuff, like I told you, 1993 and forward, a lot of, so it was just packed with programming from people from Illinois, Washington State. There was somebody signed up from South Dakota. It was pretty awesome. I was excited about that. But I wanted this regional conference to be a big networking event. So there was a dinner out that wasn't just the speakers, anybody who wanted to come. There was the happy hour networking, and it's going to be an annual event because it was a success. We've already got the room booked. We're going to make it a day and a half, and it's going to be I think it's May 4th and May 5th next year. And maybe in years to come, we'll move it to the fall. But for this year, we booked in the same venue, which is the Overland Park Convention Center, this big old place. You know, it was a success in that we put a lot of people together. They did networking with each other, and there was no Samantha show. I didn't speak. Isn't that a shame? I was just trying to help, you know, raise the level in our community, and it was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for your time today, Samantha. This was great. And everybody, I thank you for your time this afternoon, and we will talk to you all soon.
Thanks. Take care.